Practice 6. Drawing and releasing energy in nature. 1. Select a sunny spot, perhaps a smooth boulder or a grassy area near flowing water. Lie upon the spot face down and completely relax. Breathe out all the toxic energy by exhaling with a soft moan, pushing the abdomen in on the exhale. Feel all the heavy, tired, diseased energy drain into the earth to be recycled. If flowing water is nearby, allow the sensation of its flowing to wash through you, positioning yourself so the flow moves from your feet through your body to your head and beyond. Release the toxic energy with the same moaning exhale and abdominal push. 2. Fall asleep for a moment and allow the process to continue in dreaming, releasing the energy even more fully. 3. Roll over onto your back and allow the sunlight to renew every aspect of your being. Take sunlight into the eyes through barely parted lids, using your lashes to soften the light. Allow the earth to recharge your spinal column with sturdy fire energy. Breathe in and expand your abdomen on the inhale, feeling the support of the earth. 4. Fall asleep again and continue the renewal process in dreaming, drinking the sunlight energy into your dream and your luminous awareness. 5. Awaken and thank the spot. Revive, stand, and stretch, breathing deeply. Chapter 7. Shapeshifter Dreaming. The running joke in the house became whose turn it was for the day, and the following day it was Don Juan's. The sorcerers did not follow a turnabout order, but rather a topical one, which might involve several repeating turns or the skipping of someone. And so no predictable pattern could be theorized by me, and I was constantly in a state of delightful surprise. My lesson began with a morning walk in the desert and a search for rattlesnakes. Don Juan assured me they had plenty to tell. We trotted carefully in a dry water canyon, checking crevices and under rocks as we passed. Don Juan carried a long stick, forked at the tip, with which he could pin a rattler's head if need be. Finally, as we neared a turn, we spied a baby rattlesnake hiding in a high crevice above a boulder at about shoulder height. We inched closer and closer until it began to hiss and rattle, rearing and offering a few mock strikes. "Is the mother nearby?" I asked, concerned. "Not likely," Don Juan responded. "Once babies like this little guy here are born, the mother leaves them to fend for themselves. That's why they're so nasty." The tiny rattler hissed emphatically. Rattlers give birth to live young. Unlike some snakes which lay eggs, a rattler's favorite food. To protect her offspring, a mother gives them one gift, a bite as strong and venomous as her own, although the babies are puny by comparison. Other creatures know this and leave them alone. If you were to try to handle this fellow, you'd most likely get quite a dose of its venom. Once they mature a bit, they learn not to waste their toxin on creatures too large for them to eat, and will frequently dry bite a large aggressor in order to save their lethal charge for a small mammal, reptile, or bird. "That's quite intelligent," I remarked as the baby rattler turned to face the noisemaker and offered a mock strike in my direction. Since shamans saw rattlers as pure sexual energy, the desert cultures around this area learned from the lesson. The men especially learned about the conservation of this energy and about its potency, which resulted in very long-lived, tall men, as you know. The women learned about its concentrated potency and miraculous abundance, which made the women wise and the children strong. We did not overpopulate the area, since the desert was our teacher, and yet there was no lack of passion. "Let's move on and let this little fellow relax. We'll find a spot to sit and talk around the bend." We proceeded, much to the baby rattler's relief, and did in fact find a shady spot under some overhanging rock, which was, upon close inspection, entirely free of snakes, scorpions, and insects. We brushed the ground clean and sat down to relax, shielded from the steadily rising sun. I pulled out a water bottle from my pack and offered Don Juan a drink before taking one myself. Besides observing rattlesnakes, what other methods were employed to learn from them? I asked curiously once we were settled. As Chan has already told you, permission must be asked and obtained before one may begin. The process is one of dreaming and bridging. In the first step, the dreams are of snakes. One may dream of seeing snakes, or as you have done, one may actually dream of talking with them. I vividly recalled the dream to which he referred. He had left me dreaming on a rock by a cool stream, and shortly afterwards a rattlesnake had appeared in the dream and had spoken with me at length. I then told Don Juan that I had finally bridged that dream into the waking world, and he urged me to recount the entire experience. Well, I began, I was walking in the mountains above Tucson on a cool stormy night, not long after returning from Mexico. I had my flashlight with me. It was a beautiful night filled with strong breezes, lightning, and a soft rain. As I neared a curve on the dirt footpath, I spied a rattlesnake stretched full length across it, cooling its underbelly on the moistened earth. I shone the light from my flashlight across the length of the snake and could perceive that there were bushes on either side of the path, so there was no way to step around it. The sudden light seemed not to irritate it. It rather seemed to bask in the light. The snake neither hissed nor rattled, nor coiled, and made no motion to strike or to slither away. I could perceive from the light reflected in its eye that it was alive, fully awake, and aware of my presence. However, it did not seem in the least apprehensive. Rather, it was sublimely relaxed, almost hypnotic. A snake cannot strike when it's stretched straight. It must coil to strike. But that's not the important point. Go on, Don Juan urged. I pondered what to do, whether I should wait or turn back. The presence of a large rattler so close to me was stunning, and I found myself being very still and respectful, not making any unnecessary movements. The thought even occurred to me that the snake seemed so relaxed I might step across its length softly and proceed with my walk, to which I heard a startling reply. Don Juan laughed out loud. That snake crossed your path in the most dramatic way possible, he said emphatically, pointing his index finger at me. He did it literally and with full awareness. It was an appointment with power. There was no way that you were going anywhere else. To have behaved carelessly would have been the terribly dangerous waste of a gift. That is exactly what the snake told me, I shouted, astonished, silently realizing how silly I might sound out of context. Its eye peered directly into mine, and I heard with my ears with the center of my forehead. It said, I know you're not going to take another step. What did you learn? Don Juan asked with keen interest. The snake showed me how it can make a staff of itself, how to produce deep trance and relaxation, how to rest for well-being, and how to be in heightened awareness simultaneously. I also learned that snakes can be friendly and fearless, but that they are never foolhardy. I felt awe for their wisdom, and I also perceived that they know the exact moment when energy is being taxed or patience is being strained. I felt compelled to back away respectfully at that precise moment, and I did not turn my back to the rattler until I had walked backwards to round the bend again. I applaud your achievement, Don Juan said sincerely. It's time for you to learn the next step in the process, which is to become a snake. Let's go back and see our little friend again. I'm sure he's still around. We got up, dusted ourselves off, and walked a short distance back to the place in the canyon where we had seen the baby rattler earlier. Peeking into the crevice, I could see that it was still there, almost unchanged in location. It hissed at me as if to remind me of its previous warning, but did not move to rear or strike as long as I did not make any false moves. Don Juan came closer, opened a pouch tied to his trousers, and handed me a small nest of twigs that he had fashioned himself that morning before I had awakened. Next, he handed me a preserved quail egg that he had obtained from Doña Celestina. He instructed me to place the egg within the nest, not far, but at a non-threatening distance from the small rattlesnake. We then took a walk in the desert for about an hour and a half, following which we retraced our steps. Upon returning to the snake's crevice in the canyon, I was not surprised to find that the nest was empty. The little serpent's face revealed no secret other than satisfaction, but there was a guilty lump not far behind his mouth. "It will take him a while to digest the egg," Don Juan commented. "Gradually the bulge will move back through his body and get smaller and smaller. There'll be no solid waste, for snakes have perfect digestion," he explained. We walked on to the shady overhang where he had rested earlier, and again seated ourselves. "The next step in dreaming is to become a snake," Don Juan continued. "Often one dreams that one is bitten first, but in your case, I don't think this is necessary. You now have an affinity with rattlers. I know from working with Chan the Maya dream of being swallowed by a large serpent. If the tail goes up and the head comes down from the cosmos, they ascend into higher realms of energy. If the tail points down and the head rises from the underworld, they descend into the lower realms called Shibalba. The human practice is to dream into the spine in order to transform into snake. You may try whichever you prefer, or both. Let power decide which is right for you, and the order in which to proceed. Why don't you make yourself comfortable here and dream? The well-fed little rattler not far from here will surely come to your assistance. I'll walk on a ways and see what else is happening in the desert this afternoon. Later I'll come back for you, and we can drive into San Luis for a bite of lunch." Don Juan got up and continued his walk through the canyon. His strategies were always flawless. By leaving me right around lunchtime, I had nothing to do but think about my growing appetite and impatiently await his return, or disregard it, impatiently sleep while he enjoyed his walk. Motivated by curiosity and common sense, I opted for the latter. Leaning my back against a boulder in the shade of an overhanging rock, I found that I was soon dozing, and that my attention, by virtue of the pressure exerted by the boulder, was centered within my spine. It wasn't long before I perceived a golden energy concentrated there, which floated like liquid mercury within a staff-like column. I entered dreaming, and swam energetically down to the base of it, where I merged with this golden liquid life, and instantaneously I awakened within it, which caused it to rise straight up and fountain out the top of my head, much like the hooded king cobra. The crowning point of this energy then bowed itself slightly forward so that it faced frontally, and a single eye appeared therein, which opened by separating lids, and then again by lifting or rolling back a translucent hood from the eye. Below the tip of the eye, the golden energy coned, and there formed a tongue and a mouth, as if to speak wisdom and to sing, and the entire dream vibrated like harp strings in the wind. Then my dreaming awareness was swallowed by this golden serpent, and I found myself fully awakened in the waking world without any loss of heightened awareness or memory of the experience. I heard Don Juan's light tread on the desert gravel about 100 yards away. He was beaming, a broad smile across his face. "I know you're famished," he said enthusiastically, slapping my back as I rose eagerly from the spot. I dusted myself off and scrambled to keep up with his pace. He was right. "Let's see what we can get in San Luis that will match that appetite of yours." On the way to the Jeep, we paid a respectful visit of thanks to the baby rattler, still in his crevice and happily digesting his quail egg. Don Juan retrieved the little nest of twigs that he had made, and we cheerily trudged on. Once inside the Jeep and on the road back to town, it was obvious that even Don Juan was eager to discuss the afternoon's dream, but only in the company of good and plentiful food. We stopped at one of his favorite places, a nondescript restaurant with no name painted above the entrance. It had a large back room filled with tables under ceiling fans, around a blackboard listing the day's bountiful selections. We ordered sparkling mineral water with limes, meatball soup, cheese enchiladas, and chile rellenos with corn tortillas. Don Juan rubbed his hand eagerly over the steaming tortilla basket, opening the soft cloth to reveal freshly made tortillas, and offered me one. The waitress placed our water with limes and bowls of soup, along with freshly chopped jalapenos, on the red and white checkered tablecloth, and left us to enjoy, saying, Buen provecho." Don Juan rolled a tortilla and dunked it into the savory soup. "Was dreaming snake what you expected?" he asked with a grin. "Not at all," I said quietly. "I don't know what I preconceived, but that certainly wasn't it. The experience was so much more esoteric, much more exotic than I had anticipated. Sensual. I'm reminded of ancient Egyptian pharaohonic headdresses and tales of yogis from India." Don Juan gave me a questioning glance. "What I mean to say is that both those cultures seem to describe something similar or allude to the experience I just had. They placed a great deal of stock in it. Now I can see that without having the experience, no one can truly understand what they were talking about, and yet the fact that they seem to concur pales to the experience itself." Don Juan questioned me about the headdresses and the Egyptian penchant for pyramid building, which he compared to the Maya. "The realizations are not quite the same," he commented. "The focus is different, but they were seeing something not unlike what shamans have seen for millennia. Perhaps another difference is the way the knowledge was put to use. Since their serpents were golden as yours, I will tell you that gold is not the final form of the serpent, you know. How few people ever get far enough to see that. The qualities of gold are incorruptibility and that it can withstand a good burn. No matter what you defile it with, fire of sufficient intensity will separate the gold and restore its purity, which does not char or mar under any circumstances. That is quite an energetic accomplishment, and yet gold can be heavy for some. Although I think that this is not so in your case. The serpent can transform still further, however. "Into what?" I gasped, totally enthralled. "Ah, now that is the great mystery," he responded softly, almost at a whisper. "Rainbows. Light?" I whispered in realization even more softly. "You will tell me more, Don Juan, won't you?" "That is one reason I called you back here, Merlina. I'm getting to be an old snake whose venom has been fermenting like a cactus wine for a long time. If done right, aging makes the energetic wine grow stronger and more concentrated. This last shedding of skin will be more like a cocoon for me." I shuddered. Don Juan was speaking of things I was not quite ready to face, and yet from his expression I could see that the moment was not far off. Practice 7. Shapeshifter dreaming. 1. Begin by gazing at the desired creature in dreaming, be it serpent, hawk, even tree. Ask permission to join with it, and focus your gaze into the eyes, or the essence, viewing the remainder of the creature with your peripheral vision. Feel the energy reciprocating. 2. Slowly dissolve the barrier between the me that is dreaming you and the me that is dreaming the creature. 3. Allow your energy body to travel, to zoom in, becoming more and more of the desired form as it moves forward. 4. Share peacefully with the awareness already present there, the body and perceptions into which you have shifted. 5. Explore your dreaming domain for the length of time your energy will allow, remembering that when you run out of energy for dreaming, it ends. 6. There is no need to dream that you return to your normal form. This will occur naturally when your energy for dreaming is used up. You will awaken from dreaming with fresh knowledge and perceptions for both your physical and energy bodies. Chapter 8. Masculine and Feminine Polarity. At 4 a.m. the following morning, I was summoned into Doña Celestina's altar room by Neida's knock and a whisper at my door. I fumbled in the dark for matches to light a candle, smoothed my hair and splashed my face, slipped on a simple cotton dress, and made my way under starlight through the passageway. I knew from prior experiences with Doña Celestina that she expected one to be presentable and ready to work whenever she chose, and I would never have considered taking a moment longer to present myself. An insistent knock in the early hours is always unsettling and compelling, demanding immediate alertness. My stays with Juan had taught me to be prepared, as these stays were often similarly interrupted by urgent healing calls at any hour of the day or night. I adjusted to being startled, knowing that this was part of the work. After drawing a long, deep breath, I tapped at the altar room door and heard Doña Celestina's voice tell me to come in. The room was lit by the flame of one white candle which burned on the altar table. A window was partially open to the night air, and a soft breeze blew the curtain gently. Doña Celestina was dressed in black and seated behind the altar. There was a vacant chair in front of the altar facing her. She motioned for me to be seated there. As I did so, I took stock of the wide array of ritual items that had been placed on the table, which seemed to be the reason for the call, or the focus of our work. These hours are the best for the kind of work I often do, Doña Celestina began, by way of an explanation. Energetically, at this time of night, people are quite susceptible to influences in dreaming. Between 2 and 4 in the morning is the time when sorcerers leap and when most possession and other dark works are done. One should be aware of this in order to effect the antidotes. Tonight I have been working on the stepfather of that young victimized girl, whose mother you met in my consultation. Would you like to ask me about possession and my work with that man, or why I have called you in? Her tone was so somber and businesslike that it was evident she had just completed a long work session. You've told me before that there are several types of possession. How do they relate to what you are doing for that young woman and her mother? I asked with caution. And what does this work have to do with why you have called me here? Good. There are many kinds of possession, Merlina. Some involve removing the energy body of an individual from the physical body and keeping it for a time, temporarily borrowing it in order to do work, either for good or bad. During sleep, the energy body journeys anyway, sometimes receiving night lessons. So this makes the work easy. There are positive and negative possessions, you see. Most people, even those who say they know about witchcraft, are unaware of this. For example, a person who cannot fight a force in their lives, like the unfortunate young girl or her mother, may actually request a positive possession. In that case, they are asking to be bound in protection. Most types of possession always involve binding or containment. First, you must bring the energy body to you, or leap towards it. Then you may affect it, teach it, bind, or hold it. Shamans, sorcerers, long-distance healers, spirits, even celestial beings, seemingly all use this method. A scrupulous energy will later return what has been borrowed. After the work that has been requisitioned is completed, an unscrupulous one will often try to find a way not to do so. Another type of possession is that of controlling the energetic and physical bodies of the intended. There are many levels of this, ranging from the temporary possession of mediums by discarnate or carnate entities to full-fledged occupation. These techniques were discovered first by shifters. I know that Juan worked with you yesterday on this practice. Once an energetic rapport has been established, once you can reconfigure your energy body into another energetic form, a being that dwells in that form may invite you to share bodies. So in the case of a crow, for example, one must first go through the process of being able to transform one's own energy body into that of a crow. At that point, one may communicate with crow, and one possibly may be invited to leap, to exit one's own body energetically and temporarily share the body of a crow for the mutual benefit of both. The crow learns from the practitioner, and the practitioner learns from the crow. Naturally, you can see how the possibility for abuse arises once practitioners latch onto the energetic interconnectedness of shifting. Some proceed correctly with impeccable intent, permission, and invitation. Others manipulate the energy. As a result, the practices have been guarded and kept secret. What I have been doing with the abusive stepfather of that young girl is to temporarily borrow him at night, to bring him here and teach him lessons that affect his will to engage in the kind of behavior that has almost ruined his stepdaughter's life. Fear is a great teacher. I've called you in, Merlina, because I saw upon completing my work for this night that there is a great lesson for you here in male and female energy. I've set up my altar with everything I'll need to teach it to you. I've given Chan and Juan a task today to run an errand for me so that you will not be affected by their presence until you've seen what I have to show you. I heard the sound of the front gate being closed. They'll be gone now, so you can have a shower and some breakfast. Meet me back here after the sun has come up. In a daze, I went back to my room to get my shower supplies. I couldn't decide who was the greater taskmaster. Each of my 3 mentors had a way of naturally demanding more of me than I would have thought possible, and of behaving as though it were all effortless. And yet, in shifting my level of awareness to accommodate each of them, their tasks truly became pleasurable, and I could sense through my level of well-being that something was happening. I returned to the altar room after refreshing myself and breakfasting alone on chicken tamales, eggs, and strong coffee in the kitchen. The patio had a much more graceful feeling with almost everyone out of the house. It seemed now to be the domain proper of morning sunlight, which caressed the space. I waited in a chair outside the altar room until Doña Celestina appeared in the passageway and opened the door for us to enter. Inside, the morning light was streaming through the open window, something I had never seen. since the room was always kept dark with heavy closed curtains. I had my first real opportunity to look around. Outside the window, I could see that there was a small private garden area for Doña Celestina's special hexing, antidote, and medicinal plants. The entire length of the 3 walls nearest it, which were of a pale earthen hue, was lined with old wooden cabinets, shelves, and niches, which gave the impression of an apothecary. All the cabinets were kept neatly closed. On the final wall, to the right of the entrance, stood a large floor mirror on a pedestal, covered by a black sheet, and a row of 6 straight-backed wooden chairs. The altar table was placed at an angle slightly facing the entrance and occupied an off-center location near the middle of the room. An overall warmth shone from the fired terracotta floor tiles, and the ceiling, which was white, had dark, heavy wooden support beams running across its length. The altar was covered with ritual objects, just as I had seen it earlier. Doña Celestina seated herself and again motioned me to sit across from her at the table. This lesson is about the power of complete woman and who possesses it, she stated in a serious and emphatic tone. The items you see here are representatives of the many powers she wields. I want you to first gaze at the mesa, her word for an empowered work of ritual placed upon an altar, and tell me if you feel or sense that there are any of these powers missing within you. She commanded me with her eyes to fix my gaze upon the array in silence. I carefully examined every item in an attempt to comprehend the relevance of each to female power. Also, I gazed upon the holistic presentation for the total effect. In the center of the mesa sat a clay bowl filled with water and small orange flowers. A ripened pomegranate was placed behind the bowl, and a large hunting knife sat to the right of it. A clay chalice occupied a place to the upper left of the bowl. Within the chalice there was water and a heart-shaped, polished clear quartz stone. Below the chalice sat a long, clear quartz crystal wand, perfect in its natural unpolished state. Above all of these items, and laid across the width of the mesa, was a rain stick made from a dried shaft of organ pipe cactus. A large spiraling cone shell, placed point up, above and perpendicular to the center of the rain stick, occupied the uppermost position on the mesa. The total effect was quite enthralling, and while I had to admit that I did not yet understand the significance of every piece placed on the mesa, I intuitively felt, internally scanning my body with a sense of my own energy, that I was not missing anything represented as a female power there. I asserted this to Doña Celestina. "You're right," she said, relieved, as though she had perhaps been uncertain that I would be able to come to this determination on my own. "That's what makes you such a desirable candidate for this work. That's why we were all drawn to you, each in our own way. However, the world is such that even a woman in your position, with whole power, may not realize that fact. For most women, the story is quite different. In addition to the world we live in, most women are missing one or more powers from the mesa. So the lesson I have for you today is for all women, and even for men. I suggest you find some way later on to share it." "Would you please explain, Doña Celestina, what you see each of the powers to be and how they can be lost?" "I intend to do much more than that," she acknowledged. "I will also tell you how the powers can be retrieved, for that is the task I give to many women in order to help them. Some of the powers you will know yourself. Some may come as a surprise to you. The centerpiece is the womb, she said, turning the clay bowl counterclockwise with the index finger of her left hand. Made from earth, and yet there is a celestial womb as well, which is also feminine. She indicated the celestial womb, or zenith, the center of creation directly above us, with the same finger. I have heard dreary stories from some of my Catholic clients that the church tells women they come from a rib of the first man. Have you ever once seen that? She went on. I had to laugh. I'm glad you see the humor in it. Many women do not. The Doña continued. The flowers floating inside represent the ability to open. The water is the orgasmic response. Look how full the bowl is. Many women have a cracked or an empty bowl, which means that through some means they have lost their capacity for orgasm. I like to compare this earthly condition to the rise of the Aztecs. When they arrived at the sacred lake of their dream visions, they drained it so that they might build their capital upon the dry bed. The bed was on a fault, a crack between several different realms of earthly creation. And when they drained it and put undue pressure of the wrong kind upon it, it became unstable. The Aztec people lost certain healing, feminine, saving graces and became sacrificial and warlike. They believed that if they returned blood for the water they had stolen, the earth would not quake and destroy their world. Such is the fate of many women today who have been treated abusively in the extreme. Very little good can come of it. What can women do to take responsibility for the situation, rather than acting like victims? I asked, very concerned. The first task is very basic. Women must recover their orgasms any way they can, she replied bluntly. My mind wandered across myriad possibilities. Doña Celestina softly nudged me under the table with her foot. Paints quite a picture, doesn't it? She smirked. The power of the womb has been severely neglected in favor of that of the vagina. Pussy power, I thought to myself, and couldn't help but break into laughter, which was evidently what she had intended. She also burst out laughing. Laughter has power, she finally said. It's healthy. Women are not going to recover their missing energy by being morose. I thought of making a checklist numbered in order of necessity. Number 1, orgasms. What a place to begin. That's the beginning, she reaffirmed. The womb is the first brain, and men don't have one. It's important to remember that. It fills with water from the orgasmic response. She lifted the rain stick erect. That caused it to emit beautiful, rain-falling sound upon both of us, as corn kernels fell through the labyrinth of thorns that had been pushed from the exterior of the staff through to the interior of it in order to lengthen the fall. We'll talk about that more later. Another of the feminine powers is her seed, she said, pointing to the pomegranate. They are whole within themselves and can make other whole females, but they can also change by themselves to make a male, if need be. There are plants and reptiles which can do this, hence the shamanic emphasis on these species. The male, then, can be a strategic variant to enhance the whole, which is both male and female simultaneously. See? I do see, I said, astounded. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. Finally, someone knew what was never expressed and was explaining it. And not only that, Doña Celestina lived it. Now the other pieces on the altar will become clear, she continued. The knife is woman's ferocious edge to defend her young. If you don't believe she has one, try getting between a mother bear and her cub. She will fight to preserve her life so that she may care for the offspring, and at the same time will fight to the death to keep anything from doing harm to her young. Many human females have abdicated their edge because they are afraid of it. It's very sharp and dangerous, and in fear they bestow it upon the males. The edge can be dulled, though, through successive childbearing if the woman is unwilling to stand up for them. And sometimes it is against males who wield her borrowed edge that she must defend herself and her young. Woman is by no ways obligated to bear children, although most are told differently. She may use her edge to preserve herself. Doña Celestina picked up the hunting knife and brandished it at me with a ferocious glint in her eye. I recoiled slightly. Males have become interested in something besides our edge. And that brings me to this, she said, and picked up the crystal wand. Women have a phallic energy within them. Inside, she repeated, pointing to the area below her womb. They must have it in order to produce good quality male offspring, if need be. Men are attracted to it, as it enhances their own maleness. And over the centuries, we have played the old "I've got your nose" game. She referred to the trick of pinching a child's nose and then showing them a portion of the thumb between the first and second fingers of the offending hand, saying, "I've got your nose." If you believe that someone has taken something from you, even if that is not possible, you will empower the illusion, she continued. They may then borrow what they desire for an indefinite time. Have you ever loaned someone something and had them fail to return it? I nodded. And then when you finally go to them and ask for its return, they deny ever having had it? She challenged. Yes, I have, I answered truthfully. Well, that is the plight of a disempowered woman, and that's exactly where a witch comes in. She smiled with a cold glint in her eyes and teeth. I sat back and drew a deep breath. The scope of her analysis was quite beyond anything I had anticipated, and so right on the money that it caused me pause. Men don't need to borrow that which we have already given them by grace. That's the easy way for indolent males. It's important to remember that we give them phallic energy by reproducing, not by giving away our own. Good God, I exclaimed. Exactly, Doña Celestina seconded. Now this horn here, she said, picking up the large cone shell. I'm going to let Juan talk to you about this. Not because I cannot, but because this is his condition energetically at this time. What about the chalice? I asked. Ah, this is a great mystery, Doña Celestina replied. Another lake, Merlina, like that of the womb. Only this one is in the heart. It is a spirit lake. She whispered the words, Spirit Lake. Practice 8. The Mesa, Altar. 1. To prepare a mesa for ritual purification and empowerment, you first need to find a sacred space within your home that is private and lends itself to ceremonial work. You will need a table, an empty chest, or an alcove with a shelf. 2. Select a cloth, either of a woven design or of a single color, to cover the working plane of your table, chest, or shelf. You may choose to melt the wax of multicolored candles over your working plane, creating a solid wax surface upon which to do work, rather than covering the area with a cloth. 3. Select items to represent all of the powers of a complete womb. These items should include the waters of the womb, the wand or phallic energy, the edge, the flowering principle, the earthen vessel representing the womb space and the blood, and fire in the form of a candle. 4. Meditate upon the mesa and try to sense if any of the powers represented there are missing within you. Males, for example, often do not know how to find their womb space. Women, conversely, have often given away their phallic energy, sometimes unbeknownst to themselves. 5. Meditate upon the mesa to discern any imbalances, areas of depletion or overemphasis. Search for areas that seem angry, damaged, or energetically unclean. 6. Purify your entire mesa with the smoke of a burning copal, the most neutral and powerful cleansing spirit within smoke. Leave the set-up mesa well protected, as you will return to it often for further work. Chapter 9. Cultivating the Sexual Energy. As Doña Celestina had indicated, Don Juan was waiting for me the next morning, chipper and back from his mysterious errand, with no mention of what he and Chan had been up to. Doña Celestina told me that she left an item on the mesa for me to talk with you about, Don Juan said after we had finished breakfast. I will tell you about it, but not today. We have some work to do before we can speak of this. Are we going somewhere today, Don Juan? Yes, I think I'll have you drive us to a little park, I know, near the center of San Luis. There are old eucalyptus and nice benches for sitting and watching the passerby. Doña Celestina has a friend who owns a very good Chinese restaurant close to the park. She recommends that we try it, and so we can make a day of it. There was no sign of Chan anywhere in the house. After getting my handbag from my room, Don Juan and I set out in the Jeep towards the town center. He was right. The park was lovely and already filled with morning life. Surrounded by tall eucalyptus, the small square had a lush green lawn with a fountain and gazebo at the center. Sidewalks edged the little park and crisscrossed its center, creating a promenade for young girls with their mothers to stroll about. Wrought iron benches lined the perimeter underneath the eucalyptus and provided a place for adolescent boys and older men to sit and watch the strolling women. We found a solitary bench under a thick, leafy eucalyptus and sat down comfortably. Several Cocopa and Mexican gentlemen sat on some of the other benches, snoozing under their straw hats or relaxing and gazing at the sway of the trees. It was a clear, mild, sunny day, perfect for being outside. A shoeshine stand had been set up on one corner, and not far from there, a newspaper vendor was displaying the second shipment of his morning array. Across the way, a woman was selling freshly squeezed orange juice. In an hour or two, musicians would arrive. Ah, the pace of life in Mexico. Don Juan settled back and stretched his legs. I did the same. The fresh breeze and the rustle of eucalyptus combined with the chorus of grackles to create a sensation that was sublime. While we relax and enjoy, I want to take the opportunity to show you a special breath, he said. Chan uses a similar breath in his healing work. I know you have heard of him use it when he's doing an energetic healing. Yes, I was hoping someone would show me that breath in more detail. I encouraged him. Chan calls it a fire breath. That's a good name, for lack of a better one, Don Juan agreed. Sit up straight, stretch your back, relax and breathe in from your nostrils, pulling up gently on all the muscles of your lower body, every one. Plant your feet firmly on the ground, and when you breathe in, contract your abdomen. This creates a sensation of heat, like a bellows fueling a fire. Keep breathing this way until you have pulled the heat up into the back of your abdomen. Then continue the breath. Pull the heat into your heart, then to the back of your throat, up to the back sinuses, the back of your head, and then to the top. The heat comes up the back, see? I tried the breath, following his demonstration. and I was amazed at the sensation of heat that welled up within my body. It rose up my back, as he had said, and as it did, my hands became tingly and began to perspire. They felt magnetized. My skin was slightly moist all over. "That's good," he said. "Now let the sensation drip down from the top of your head into the center of your forehead. This is the liquid side, where all the fluids move. The heat will feel thick, moist. Swallow it as it drips down from your forehead, and then feel it coat your throat, melt into the front of your heart, and radiate into your lungs. As you breathe down the front, inhale the warm stream. Expand your abdomen on the inhale. Increase its size to collect and fill with the liquid heat like a pool. When you inhale, relax and expand the way a baby does when it breathes, the way a puma or a jaguar breathes when it growls. Let the warm liquid energy flow into your sides. Fill the organs there, and then drip down into your womb, the sexual organs. Collect and hold the energy in the center of will, the umbilical region, right behind and slightly below the navel, and feel it spin as it twists and concentrates into powerful intent, life-giving force. I followed his instructions precisely. It felt as though someone had poured large amounts of warm honey through a hole in the center of my head when I breathed in deeply and expanded my abdomen. The warmth dripped, flowed, and melted down the front of my body, causing my eyes to moisten, my throat to swallow involuntarily, and my heart to ooze an emotion that felt very like love, which then spread warmth into my lungs and flowed to both arms and hands, causing a gentle caressing sensation. My sides filled with vital energy, and I actually felt the energy spinning inwards towards my spleen, liver, and adrenals. My reproductive center became warm, like the steaming cauldron I had seen in dreaming, and the force of my will forged, as though the fibers of my intent emerging from my umbilical region were being woven into a thick, sturdy rope. "That is a very powerful and energizing breath," I exclaimed after having completed his instructions. "My vision is enhanced. I feel revitalized." "There are many things that can be done with it," Don Juan added. "For example, a healer can send the energy into his hands to sensitize them for a body scan, as Chan does. The breath can be used to maintain vitality and well-being. It can also be enhanced by allowing a further opening of the head, hands, and feet when pulling in energy from external sources, such as trees, the earth, the sky, or the sun. All of our tired, sick energy can be released on the liquid out breath as the energy moves down the front of the body. This can be done by embracing the trunk of a tree and releasing on the exhale, pushing the abdomen in, or by allowing the exhaled energy to drain through the feet into the earth, or by doing the in-breath lying on one's back on a stone facing up at the sun, and then executing the out-breath rolled over with the abdomen on the boulder, releasing the tired or diseased energy from the center of will, through the stone and into the earth. Any tired or ill energy can always be released on the out-breath, which travels down the front by pushing the abdomen in while exhaling. This breath also enhances the sexual organs and feeds them with a fresh supply of warm and vitalized energy, which may be stored there in order to cultivate potency, creativity, health, and longevity. For a shaman or a healer, sexual energy is very important, as we have discussed. Remember, though, that sexual energy is often utilized differently by shamans, healers, and sorcerers than it is by ordinary people. Shamans and healers need a large dose of sexual energy to do their work, and so this breath is invaluable. I would say, however, that it is also extremely beneficial for the ordinary man or woman so that they may maintain or cultivate well-being and heightened energy in a relationship. I'm glad to hear that these practices are also helpful for people who are not actively becoming shamans, sorcerers, or healers. I reflected gratefully. Everything we have shared with you since your first arrival at my home over 1 week ago is of the utmost benefit, Don Juan confirmed. How often should the fire breath be done, Don Juan? Just as dreaming should be done every night to enhance well-being and power, so should the fire breath be done at least once a day, preferably when one is relaxing in the fresh air, as we are now. Are there other shamanic methods that raise the sexual energy besides dreaming, snake, and fire breath? I asked. Yes, there are several. A shaman may use rattling with a very special kind of rattle, which can reproduce a sound similar to the shaking of a rattlesnake's tail when it gives warning before it rears to strike. This is the reason rattles have been employed since the beginning of time. They evoke a snake's trance state, and the shaman is able to ride the sound and intensify it to reach the desired heights. Another method is the singing of special snake songs that are given in dreaming for that express purpose. Healers and shamans often sing these songs to raise the energy while they work. When they sing a song given in dreaming, they are bridging the power and, in a sense, are dreaming awake. Yet another method is to dance. But in order to raise the sexual energy up the spine through dancing, the spine must be kept very supple. There are magnificent snake dancers among the different desert tribes. However, many people lose the flexibility necessary to dance snake through repetitive movements, thoughts, and behaviors that stiffen the body. Fluidity is the key. Are there ways to regain the flexibility? I asked him. The most important movement for the back is to stretch and crack the spine often. This releases tension and pent-up energy we are holding. Then one may seek to slow and extend the stretch. For the snake, movements should be graceful, undulating, and powerful, never jerky and overly explosive. That is a waste of energy. The movement should start in the lower spine, in the areas where sexual arousal first occurs, and should then follow the flow upward in a rippling motion until the energy fountains above the head like a flame. The arms then float softly upward, extending their length like the flame shifting in a soft breeze. The arms are then stretched out sideways in flight, as snake becomes eagle, still keeping the spine supple and rippling. Dances such as these, special power sounds and songs, will definitely raise the sexual energy. The healer or shaman's force will then be maximized for the work they intend to do. The special rattles, individual sounds, songs, and the particular qualities of the dance are all found in dreaming first, and then bridged into curing ceremonies, healings, or shamanic work. Always proceed in a sacred way, remembering that this energy is among the most potent in creation. Ask permission. It is a very ancient energy and has its own wisdom. You do not want to anger, disgust, or defile it under any circumstances, especially not once it has been awakened. My feeling is that most people today prefer to remain in slumber. It is easier to be sloppy. Once the serpent has been awakened, there is no excuse. And if you make a snake angry, it will strike. The careless individual still gets bitten when he or she is clumsy. Ignorance is no defense. The difference is that the careless person does not know where the bite came from. Shamans take many precautions so that they might raise and awaken the energy in the best possible circumstances into an energetic space that it will not find completely distasteful. Once the energy is above a certain level, once it becomes celestial, it becomes very selective. Is there anything else I should know, Don Juan? You did very well dreaming snake. That taught you a great deal. But as I told you, the serpent can move even higher. Don't try to hold it. Beyond fountaining out the top of the head, it can actually fly. But only when the practitioner is ready. And that takes a long time, perhaps a lifetime. You should know that bringing the energy back down to its nest in the base of the spine and the sexual organs is as important as raising it up or awakening it. When the energy returns, it should not crash, but rather descend gracefully and filled with vitality, never depleted. This is of great importance, hence the fire breath, as Chan calls it. This is the way to return the energy replenished. It must melt down the front, never fall down the back. Understand? Yes, thank you. I see. You've told me so many things that people don't know about working with sexual energy, Don Juan. This is knowledge people need to have. Not only do many lack understanding of what to do with or how properly to honor their sexual energies, there are those who try to raise this energy, which some disciplines have called kundalini, carelessly. That is madness, Don Juan stated firmly. Let's take a walk around. What do you say? He suggested, slapping his thighs, standing and stretching his spine. Absolutely, I replied. We ambled along pleasurably to the other side of the park, where a group of musicians were setting up to play their first tune. Their four-piece ensemble consisted of a folk harpist, an accordion player, a guitarist, and a bass guitarist. All of them appeared to be in their 50s and had the robust look of happy, well-fed Mexicans. While we waited, we mingled with the passer-by, who were collecting to enjoy the music and who would occasionally put a few pesos into the group's instrument cases. The concert began in quite a lively way, consisting of rancheras, which have a frisky two-step dance beat, and veracruzanas, which play the joyous central melody on the folk harp. I felt the bouncy rhythm and had a desire to shuffle my feet, which I did discreetly so as not to attract undue attention to myself. Soon scores of locals were strolling the park, women with small children, students on lunch break, ice cream and balloon vendors, business people, literally every type of citizen from that area, including little old ladies, out from the woodworks with their granddaughters to help them. It turned into quite a festive affair. The musicians played for about an hour and then finally broke up for lunch. The crowd dispersed, and everyone made their way back home or to restaurants for the midday meal. Don Juan suggested that we do the same, and we walked across the street and around the corner to Hong Lee's. A colorfully painted, open-mouthed dragon awaited us at the entrance to the restaurant. I gave Don Juan a conspirator's glance as we ushered into the dimly lit, tastefully furnished dining room by a delicate young woman who spoke Spanish, but with a distinct Chinese accent. After seating us at a well-chosen private table, she went back into the kitchen, and shortly afterwards, Hong Lee came out to introduce himself. In broken Spanish, he profusely welcomed us, insisting that we accept our lunch without charge and allow him to select for us from the best he had to offer that day. We graciously accepted and thanked him, and he scurried off into the kitchen, shouting rapidly in Chinese. That fellow is one of Celestina's clients, Don Juan reminded me. She never ceases to amaze me. It was a pleasure to see Don Juan and Doña Celestina being treated with such respect by someone outside of the native and shamanic circles. Hong Li's tone was that reserved for addressing a venerable old wise one, something highly valued in his culture, and this came across, even through the somewhat choppy linguistic barrier. Hong Li himself was a small, slight Chinese man, perhaps in his late 60s, who evidently was experiencing good fortune in his business venture. Chinese food has become quite popular in Mexico, as it has almost everywhere in the world, and many Chinese immigrate to open restaurants there. The recipes and ingredients used are at times more authentic than fare served across the border in the United States, due to more lenient import and export regulations. We were brought a large china pot of chrysanthemum tea and a bowl of unrefined rock sugar crystals. Shortly following, 2 large bowls of thick rice soup, accented with pieces of aged, preserved duck egg, what the Chinese call 2,000-year-old egg, arrived. Upon finishing the soup, we were treated to an appetizer called crystal prawns, gigantic blue prawns, which may be obtained only from the Gulf of Cortez, perhaps 150 kilometers to the south. Although cleaned and cooked, they had been prepared in a manner that enhanced the natural translucence of their uncooked state, and were served in a nest of colorful shredded cucumber, carrot, and crisp, transparent bean thread noodle. Don Juan seemed truly impressed with the ceremonial and artistic attention given to honor the food's preparation and presentation, and with the quality and flavor of the food. He asked me curiously if the Chinese also honor the spirit of the creatures they receive as food. I told him that I did not know for sure, but that I was certain that they honored their tea, and that they appeared to have a very good rapport with plants, judging by their herbal medicine. After having an appropriate length of time to relax and sip our tea, 2 portions of green tea smoked and pressed duck arrived. Following the beautiful meal, Hong Li returned to ask us if we had enjoyed it, and brought out his mother to meet Don Juan. She was an exquisite Chinese woman in perhaps her mid-80s, who spoke no Spanish at all. When we rose to leave, after all the thanks and introductions, Hong Li spoke to me. "Thank you for bringing your elder to meet my elder," he said in his best Spanish. "Thank you in return," I said, and bowed slightly. After we had walked out the door and were on our way back to the Jeep, Don Juan spoke of his impressions of the experience. "They know of the value of energy and longevity," he said. "That is good." I agreed, and we got into the Jeep to drive back to the house.